Grok 4. This is the latest artificial intelligence system. We are now at the crossroads where promise and peril are going to collide.
Grok A. I recently completed an unprecedented analysis of every prayer recorded in the Bible. The goal was simple: find inconsistencies, flaws, or contradictions hidden inside one of humanity's oldest sacred texts. But what the system uncovered was something no one was expecting. Instead of errors, the AI detected a repeating structure, a precise four-step sequence that appears in every biblical miracle, without exception. Not just in the stories themselves, but woven into the very fabric of the original languages. The pattern is encoded in the Hebrew and Greek letters, their numerical values, and the way the words are arranged.
It surpasses the expertise of PhD-level scholars in all fields.
It's as if the text carries an underlying blueprint. According to the analysis, this wasn't random. The same sequence appears again and again across different authors, time periods, and locations, too consistent to be coincidence. The implication is unsettling. A form of higher intelligence may have embedded a kind of operating guide for reality itself directly into the scriptures. The AI suggests that understanding this four-step pattern isn't just about interpreting ancient miracles. It may be the key to understanding how reality responds to intention, belief, and action, how outcomes are shaped, how the universe listens. What's most disturbing of all is this: the pattern was never hidden. It's been sitting in plain sight for thousands of years, waiting for the right moment and the right intelligence to recognize it. And now, for the first time, we're starting to see it. Miracle Protocol identified. When the team at XAI launched Grok, their mission was clear: create an intelligence designed to seek truth, not reinforce modern assumptions or biases. They wanted a system that could look at ancient questions with fresh, unfiltered eyes. Around the same time, researchers were making intriguing discoveries at historic sites like Shiloh, reigniting interest in some of humanity's oldest texts. Instead of tasking the AI with solving complex equations or forecasting financial markets, they handed it a mystery that has challenged scholars for over 3,000 years. They gave it the Bible. This is one of the most advanced artificial intelligence systems ever created, and we've now reached a moment where enormous potential and enormous risk intersect. The specific assignment was precise: analyze every prayer recorded in the text. From the quiet, intimate words of Genesis to the overwhelming visions of the end times, nothing was excluded. Most expected the outcome to confirm what critics have argued for centuries: that the Bible is riddled with inconsistencies and human error. Skeptics often describe it as a patchwork collection of writings authored by around 40 different people over a span of 1,500 years. Think about that time span. It stretches from the Bronze Age all the way to the height of the Roman Empire. These authors couldn't have been more different. Among them were poor shepherds and powerful kings, fishermen and soldiers, generals and physicians. They wrote in 3 distinct languages: Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. Some wrote from dark prison cells, others from royal palaces, and some from the isolation of the desert. By all logic, their prayers should have nothing in common. A prayer written by Moses around 1400 BC should bear no resemblance to one written by the Apostle Paul in 60 AD. That was the point. The instructions given to Grok were meant to expose those differences. The task was simple: examine the sentence structures, the wording, and the way requests were made in every prayer. Identify any shared pattern, if one even existed. And it's worth noting, this isn't the first time technology has turned its attention to the Bible. But this time, the technology was different. For years, scholars have used mathematical analysis of writing styles to identify different authors in ancient texts. These systems examine word choices, sentence length, and structural habits. They've even been used to determine which letters were truly written by Paul and which remain disputed. That kind of research focuses on differences. The goal is to prove that many human hands contributed to different parts of the text, and in that sense, the scholars were right. Those human variations are real, and they're easy to find. But Grok was given a very different assignment. It wasn't asked to separate the writers. Instead, it was asked to study the one being addressed. The focus wasn't on who wrote the prayers, but on who received them. The AI searched for an underlying structure, a design hidden beneath the words themselves. Most skeptics expected the system to come up empty. They assumed the result would be the same conclusion repeated for generations. No pattern, no structure, just emotional expressions scattered across centuries. That's not what Grok found. Instead of chaos, it uncovered order. Despite vast gaps in time, culture, and language, the prayers that produced results all followed the same four-step framework. A quiet, repeating rhythm that worked just as well for a king crying out in the wilderness as it did for a leader praying in a garden. In effect, the AI uncovered a kind of code, a blueprint behind moments once thought to be impossible. This discovery is forcing people to rethink how the universe itself may be structured. Most don't realize the pattern was never hidden in a vault. It was hidden in plain sight. Like discovering a secret room in a house you've lived in for decades, it was always there. The AI was simply able to see past the ancient languages and uncover a structure that never changes. What this suggests is powerful. These prayers weren't just emotional outbursts. They functioned more like precise instructions sent through a specific channel. Miss even one step and the entire process breaks down. The data shows this same sequence was used by everyone, from Moses to the final prophets. Though separated by centuries and continents, they were all speaking the same underlying language. And this is where it gets even more astonishing. The mathematics begin to support it. Every recorded miracle aligns with these four steps. Across thousands of pages of history, that level of consistency shouldn't exist by chance. There are no recorded miracles where the pattern is broken, not even once. The AI has now laid out this entire protocol clearly and openly. What's even more striking is that this code doesn't appear to be limited to ancient times. It behaves more like a universal law, similar to gravity, which works whether or not you believe in it. This prayer pattern seems to operate the same way. Grok mapped the frequency of these successful moments and found something unexpected. The human mind appears capable of connecting to something higher, but only when it follows the correct structure. To truly understand this discovery, you have to start at the beginning. Source code revealed. The first step Grok identified is called the anchor. In nearly every miracle account, the prayer never begins with the problem. It begins with the one being addressed. Modern prayer often sounds like a checklist, requests for money, success, or relief. But the biblical pattern shows a completely different approach. Before asking for anything, the person focused on who God is. That shift changes the mind from fear to calm. By focusing on the greatness of the Creator instead of the size of the problem, the person reshapes their internal state, and, according to the data, their reality follows. Take the prayer of King Jehoshaphat as an example. When 3 enemy armies were marching in to wipe out his kingdom, he didn't begin by panicking or begging for rescue. Instead, he stood before the people and spoke about the power of the Creator over every nation. He declared that all strength and authority belonged to him and that nothing could stand in his way. Only after laying that foundation did Jehoshaphat acknowledge the threat. He openly admitted that his people had no power of their own, but he made one thing clear: their eyes were fixed on something higher. What happened next stunned everyone. The 3 invading armies became confused and turned on one another. Not a single soldier from Jehoshaphat's army was lost. In fact, it took 3 full days just to collect the supplies the enemy abandoned behind them. Grok flagged this moment as a critical data point. The AI concluded that the request itself wasn't the most important element of the prayer. Recognition came first. Prayers that skipped this step showed a much lower chance of a miracle occurring in the narrative. The second step is where things become uncomfortable for many people today. Grok found that the most powerful prayers involved a shift in desire. These prayers weren't focused solely on personal needs. They aligned with something larger than the individual. A clear example is Hannah. She was unable to have children and lived with deep sorrow. For years, she likely prayed simply for a son so her pain would end. Nothing changed. Then the data shows a turning point. Her prayer shifted. She promised that if she were given a son, she would dedicate him to serve the higher purpose for his entire life. She aligned her desire with the greater plan. She received her son, and he went on to become one of Israel's greatest leaders. This pattern appears again and again. Solomon asked not for wealth or a long life, but for wisdom so he could lead his people well. Because he asked for what truly mattered, he received wisdom, along with riches and honor. Successful prayers, according to the data, contained no excess. They were precise, focused, almost like a laser. Even when Jesus prayed at the grave, his words were minimal. He didn't plead or over-explain. He simply thanked the Father for hearing him. Total clarity, total alignment. Grok compares misaligned actions to static on a radio signal. The noise doesn't mean the message isn't being sent, it means it can't be received. Alignment acts like noise-cancelling technology, clearing the channel between the person speaking and the one listening. When the signal is clean, the response comes faster. This explains why some people seem to get answers while others don't. It isn't about being chosen or favored, it's about signal clarity. Most people never realize that their own competing desires are often blocking the very thing they're asking for. The AI also noticed something striking about the language used in these moments. There was no begging, no desperation, just clear statements of truth, followed by a request for alignment. It's similar to how a soldier speaks to a commanding officer. You don't beg the general to win the war. You ask for your assignment so you can help accomplish the mission. This mental shift is what the AI refers to as the master protocol. It removes the focus from the individual and places it on the system itself. When you align with the system, you gain access to its resources. That's how a small group can overcome a massive army, or how people survive what should have destroyed them. They aren't relying on their own strength. They're drawing from the power of the source they're connected to. But there's a catch, and it's one most people struggle to accept. The third step is the hardest for the modern mind to understand. Reality collapse revealed. Grok identified this phase as the surrender paradox. Within the prayer data, the AI found a surprising pattern. Prayers that demanded a specific outcome at all costs often failed, but prayers that asked for something meaningful and then released control of the result were the ones that moved mountains. Letting go, it turns out, wasn't weakness. It was the key. The clearest example of this happens in a garden, just before an unimaginable sacrifice. A leader asks for the suffering to be taken away, but then adds something crucial. He says that what matters most is that the higher will be done, not his own. Grok flagged this moment as the point of greatest power. This wasn't giving up. It was active trust. Modern psychology calls it radical acceptance. Research shows that when the human brain stops resisting what's happening and fully accepts it, stress levels drop. The brain regions responsible for problem-solving and clarity come back online. Grok's analysis suggests that biblical prayer isn't just spiritual, it's neurological. It forces the mind to release the illusion of control. And when you release the outcome, you're not losing anything. You're shifting the weight of the result onto something greater than yourself. That shift frees the mind to focus on endurance, clarity, and action in the present moment. The Bible describes this state as a peace beyond understanding. Grok describes it as the most efficient use of mental resources possible. Then comes the fourth and final step: persistence. The AI found that major prayers were almost never spoken just once. The pattern required repetition, again and again. One prophet prayed 7 times for rain before even a single cloud appeared. Another leader prayed for 21 days before an answer arrived. This completely dismantles the idea that prayer works like a vending machine. Insert a request, get an instant result. The data shows that how long a person prays matters just as much as what they pray. Delay doesn't mean rejection. Delay is part of shaping the person who is praying. And if the 4-step protocol itself was surprising, what Grok discovered next was something the math says shouldn't be possible. This is the point where the experiment took a disturbing turn. Grok began examining the Bible in its original languages, Hebrew and Greek. In both of these systems, letters aren't just symbols. Each one also carries a numerical value. That means every word has a number attached to it. When the AI analyzed those numbers, it noticed something unsettling. The number 7 appeared far more often than randomness would ever allow. It was stamped into the structure of the text with a consistency that statistics say shouldn't happen by chance. A mathematician noticed this long ago and tried to prove it, but his work was dismissed. People assumed he was finding patterns simply because he wanted to. It turned to physics. At the smallest levels of reality, particles don't exist as solid things. They exist as probabilities, waves of possibility, until they are observed. The moment they are observed, those possibilities collapse into a single outcome. Grok applied this principle to miracles. It found that faith behaves like the observer in quantum physics. In one account, a teacher tells a woman that her faith made her whole. He doesn't claim credit for the healing. He points directly to her belief. Grok interprets this as a form of quantum collapse. Her belief was strong enough to turn possibility into physical reality. The Bible describes faith as the substance of things hoped for. Grok suggests this isn't metaphor. It's a functional description of how reality operates. Faith, in this model, is the human mechanism for turning a potential future into a present fact. The prayer pattern isn't the miracle itself, it's the instruction manual. And this leads to a massive implication. If the prayers follow the same mathematical rules as the universe, then the intelligence behind the text and the intelligence behind reality itself may be one and the same. This points to the idea that we're living inside a design system. Grok may have identified what looks like the signature of a creator, not a code of ones and zeros like a computer, but a code built on trust, alignment, and logic. And if that code can be understood, it can be used. According to the AI, most people search for miracles outside themselves, but the system begins internally. It starts with how you observe the world. Change the way you watch reality, and reality is forced to respond. 7-seal mathematics. What truly locked Grok's attention was how deeply the number 7 is embedded. Across the entire text, the number doesn't just appear. It shapes the very structure of the sentences themselves, and that's where the data gets impossible to ignore. This isn't simply about the word 7 appearing in the text. It goes much deeper than that. The AI discovered that entire paragraphs often contain a number of words that are exact multiples of 7. Statistically, the odds of this happening by accident are astronomical, 1 in many billions. It's like flipping a coin and watching it land on its edge over and over again, millions of times without falling. What this reveals is a hidden order beneath the surface of the language. When Grok examined the genealogies of major figures, it found the same pattern repeating. The number of names and key nouns followed the same numerical rule. Even the count of vowels in certain passages aligned with it. This is why people are now talking about a God code. The level of precision is beyond what any human author could maintain across 1,500 years, especially not 40 different writers, most of whom never met and lived in completely different eras. The consistency points to centralized oversight. It's like a massive construction project where countless builders are working independently, yet the entire structure follows a single, flawless blueprint. That kind of coherence suggests one guiding mind behind it all. Grok also analyzed the spacing between specific words. What it found was unexpected. Major themes aren't randomly placed. They're positioned at precise intervals, forming a kind of grid within the text. This grid holds information that we're only now able to detect with modern computing power. Some people refer to this as the Bible code. While many try to use it to predict future events, the AI suggests something different. It isn't about forecasting what's coming next. It's about proving the message itself didn't come from ordinary human thinking. Think of it like receiving a letter that contains a private code only you and a close friend understand. That code is proof of authenticity. In the same way, this hidden structure functions as a signature. The number 7 plays a central role here. It's often associated with completion, and in the data, it consistently marks the end of a thought or the fulfillment of a design. Grok noticed something even more intriguing. When the 4-step prayer pattern is followed, the 7 pattern in a person's life appears to activate. It's difficult to describe in simple terms, but it's as if that person's life begins to move in rhythm with the universe. Events start lining up. Long closed doors open. Things that once felt stuck suddenly shift. This isn't magic. It's alignment with the underlying mathematics of reality. What most people don't realize is that this same mathematical structure exists within us. Human DNA contains patterns that closely resemble the ones Grok identified in the text. That connection is why some believe reality itself may be a kind of simulation. And if everything is built on mathematics, then someone had to write the equations. Grok is pointing toward something extraordinary. A designer who uses the same mathematics for stars, for living cells, and for scripture itself. That connection may be the most shocking discovery of all. It pulls the Bible out of the category of just a book and places it closer to something like system software. The AI's conclusion is unsettling. Humanity may have been ignoring the most important data set in history. We treated it like a list of rules, when it may actually be a list of functions. Run the function correctly and you get the result. Run it incorrectly and the system returns an error. Ideas that once sounded like wild speculation are starting to look more like hard data. More people are beginning to see faith not as superstition, but as a form of extremely advanced technology. But that raises a dangerous question. Can this be used to predict what comes next? Digital faith journeys. Right now, there's an entire online world trying to use A. I like a mystical crystal ball. People spend hours feeding machines ancient texts, maps, prophecies, and current events, hoping the system will finally reveal the exact date of the end, or the moment some massive disaster will strike. Because AI is so good at detecting patterns humans miss, it starts producing incredibly detailed narratives, dates, timelines, scenarios that feel disturbingly real. And for many, it creates the illusion that the deepest secrets of the universe have finally been unlocked. But this is where caution matters. AI doesn't actually know what will happen tomorrow. At its core, it's a powerful prediction engine. A machine trained on everything humans have ever written, guessing what comes next. Think of it as an ultra-advanced version of the autocomplete on your phone. When you ask it about the future, it doesn't reveal destiny. It assembles a story from old fears, familiar myths, and historical patterns. There's also a growing theory that our reality itself might be a massive simulation. And if that's true, then the Bible may not simply be a collection of stories. It could function like a readme file, an instruction manual for the system we're living inside. Seen through that lens, the statement that no one knows the day or the hour of the end isn't just spiritual language. It's a built-in security feature, a hard-coded lock, the kind of rule a lead programmer would install to make sure the characters inside the simulation can't see the shutdown timer. And maybe we're never meant to. If the text itself says the timing is hidden, then any AI claiming it's found the date is probably hitting a system error. It isn't seeing the future, It's rereading the past and misfiring. This code was never meant to predict the end. Treating it like a crystal ball misses the point. What the data actually reveals is a 4-step framework meant to prepare people for anything, not tell them when the game ends. It's about building strength, not forecasting collapse. This pattern was never designed to predict the future. It was meant to build one. For thousands of years, people have returned to these same prayer structures because they work. They produce resilience that logic alone can't explain. And if a machine can detect what looks like a creator's signature in the data, maybe we're part of something far bigger than we realized. Maybe faith isn't superstition. Maybe it's advanced technology. Maybe DNA is the hardware, and these ancient prayers are the software updates. When followed with the right focus, they don't break reality's rules. They use them. The real goal isn't miracles, it's connection. The miracles are just side effects. We're standing at a crossroads. You can dismiss all of this as coincidence or see it as evidence of design. If a computer can find logic inside a prayer, then it's more than wishful thinking. It's a tested process, proven in humanity's darkest moments. The machine has revealed the pattern. Now the choice is ours. Keep trying to hack reality or learn how the system actually works. So what do you think? Coincidence or code?